Hello everyone and welcome to the July edition of the Chatty Corner. We'll see how well this goes because right now I'm sitting in front of a fan because it is very warm here in the UK as I record this. I don't know if it will still be warm when you're listening to this, but the point is, if I kind of go off the rails more than usual or just, die in the middle of it all, it's because it's far too hot. And, here in the UK we don't have air conditioning, so that's a problem. But anyway, I'm going to do an agenda this time around because I don't do an agenda. But there's going to be some changes around here, just minor ones, nothing dramatic is going to happen. So I'm going to open this up with a statement of sorts, sort of a community statement following like things that are going on in the world right now, just to kind of set the record straight. It's stuff that I've mentioned on Twitter, but it's, I want to make a public statement, essentially. It's going to be on some big topics. So if you're a little bit anxious about stuff that's going on in the world right now and you want to skip that, I've got time codes. I've got time codes now. So if you want to skip that bit, it's there. After that, I'm going to talk about some schedule changes that happened in the past month and explain some stuff going on behind the scenes there. Then I'm going to talk about the videos that did come out this month and address some of your comments that came through from all of that. And then I'm going to introduce a new thing where I am going to talk about videos that inspired stuff that I put out and also make some recommendations of some other stuff that I've been watching that's pretty good. I mean, all of them are much bigger than me right now, so I don't think I'll make much of an improvement to their views, but I just want to share some stuff with you who are watching. So there you go. And then, of course, as always, there will be a schedule update of what's coming next upon the channel. And again, if you want to skip ahead to any of these specific points, I've got time codes now. And YouTube's got this really useful feature now where it's got like you can just click on the timeline bit. It takes you to the bit you want. It's a really good feature. Surprising that YouTube have introduced a feature that's actually good. Just snuck in a feature without too much fanfare, and it's actually a good feature. I like it. I've used it myself on things. But anyway, we're going to do the serious thing first. So, there's been a lot of stuff in the news over the past month or so, and probably going even further. There are three things I want to touch on in this statement that all kind of culminates under the same umbrella in terms of what the statement is. So obviously, we've been having a lot of protests going on around the world, particularly in America, following the murder of George Floyd at the hands of a police officer, with 3 police officers standing by watching him while he did it. It is one of many police killings of black people in America that has happened over the years, but this particular death was a catalyst for people to just say, we're done, we've had enough, and people are out on the streets risking infection for the disease that is still going around, and for that it's commendable because, they are standing up for their rights despite great personal risk. The second thing that this is off the back of is a couple of weeks back, J.K. Rowling, author of the Harry Potter books, has come out publicly as a TERF. If you don't know what a TERF is, it is a trans-exclusionary reactionary feminist. She basically published this whole manifesto about gender issues and, why she doesn't support transgender people and why, she feels that, by excluding trans people from things, we're protecting women, even though a few of the things that she would like to see happen would also negatively affect cis women. Like the thing with the bathrooms, which is endlessly tiresome because, honestly, if you're fixated on other people's genitals in a public toilet, I think people should be more worried about you in regards to sexual assault in public toilets. But anyway, that's the second thing. Because obviously, Harry Potter is an internationally successful book series with fans who've grew up with those books, and those books have meant a lot to people, and for J.K. Rowling to come out and make statements in the way that she has upset a lot of people, particularly within the LGBT community. The third thing that has happened that this statement is kind of off the back of is over the past week, a lot of women within the games industry, we're talking people like streamers, we're talking people working at game development companies, promoters, marketers, all the rest of it, people from various walks of the games industry, have come forward to make allegations against a ton of prominent figures within the industry. We're talking again from all across the industry. I've seen, game designers, game producers, CEOs, community managers, streamers, all sorts of different people from all walks of life, all coming forward with allegations about sexual misconduct. In regards to all of these things, I felt the need to make some public statements on Twitter about my stance because it seemed like everybody else was making their stance known on this as well. Which is why I'm doing this here, because if you don't follow me on Twitter, you won't have seen this and you won't know my views on this thing. Normally, I don't touch a lot on social issues, although I do make the odd joke within my videos that probably gives away my political views quite clearly, but I want to make a very, very clear statement here and now about what's been going on. It's perhaps unsurprising that I agree that Black Lives Matter. I am all for trans rights, and sexual assault is abhorrent and needs to be tackled. It is a disease on our society that it exists, and that basically every woman experiences it in some form or another. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, it's not all men, because that's part of the problem. I'm going to address that bit first directly. Throughout my life, I've had a lot of female friends, and so therefore the issue of sexual assault is a concern for me, because I don't want to see those friends come to harm. But of course, as I stated, pretty much every woman has that experience. And there's a clip that's been going around Twitter, which is a comedian who in the middle of his set basically talked about how you can't just stand back as a man anymore and say, well, I'm not going out there and sexually assaulting people, so therefore I must be part of the solution. But if you're not actually doing anything to address those who are part of the problem, then you are also part of the problem. So I kind of want to make it very public that I will not tolerate any sort of, I don't know. Basically, I want this channel to feel like a safe space. I know I don't have a large community, but I am working to grow that community, and right here and now, I want to make sure that everyone watching this feels safe, and feels safe to communicate and comment and whatever else. I want to make that very, very clear. I don't know what to do about any of the stories of sexual assault. All I know is that if I knew these people, I would be probably just chewing them out right now. Thankfully, I barely recognise any of the names, which is good because it suggests that I'm watching all the right people, which pleases me, but ultimately I can't just sort of ignore it. Similarly, what J.K. Rowling said, a lot of it is junk science put forward by people with an agenda, and all this stuff about protecting women and protecting gay people is often not really true, because particularly the bathroom issue, because there are a lot of cis women who would be negatively affected if there was a law introduced that basically said that you have to use the bathroom that corresponds to your genitals, which is absurd because there are plenty of cis women who would get harassed because they don't meet a certain ideal of what a woman looks like and all that sort of thing. And also, not to mention that most of the arguments about trans people going around right now were used against gay people like 30 years ago in exactly the same way, in exactly the same context. So I don't buy any of it. There doesn't appear to be any sort of evidence of people forcibly transitioning children, which is a major complaint that a lot of them make. And it's all just nonsense. It's just an excuse to have a go at people, and they seem to be an acceptable target. And then you've got the Black Lives Matter movement that's going on right now. I don't want to see black people endlessly killed by cops. There's a lot of racism floating around. There's a lot of people in the UK who talk about like, oh, the UK isn't racist, and yet we voted for Brexit and most of the reasons behind it were racist. I can't actually fathom the concept of racism. That's not to say I'm one of these people who's all like, oh, I don't see colour, or, you know, anything like that. Oh, I don't really see any racism, I don't understand what all these complaints are about. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I can't understand the mentality that would make someone racist. I have never looked at a black person and thought they're inferior, or they're stupid, or they're thugs, or any other sort of negative thing. I think living in a city where there's a lot of non-white people probably helps that depiction, because I find it really hard to sort of, you know, you telling me the old man across the road, the really friendly old man across the road is a thug? I don't believe that. I don't want to hear it. But anyway, point is, what it's coming down to, with all these three things happening at once, I want to make sure that this is a safe space for everyone. I want to make a public statement that on this channel, any sort of bigotry is not going to be tolerated. I have no idea if I've said anything that could be perceived as bigoted on this channel, but if I have, then most likely it would have been something that I would have said at a stupider time in my life. But I don't feel like I did. I don't feel like I've ever really made jokes about stereotypes about different groups of people or anything like that. As far as I'm aware, I have got a lot of videos on this channel that go back 10 years. I am not about to go through them all just to see if I've made any bad comments, but, you know, the point is, going forward at least, I want to make it very clear that bigotry of any kind is not welcome on this channel. If I see anyone being sexist, racist, homophobic, transphobic, basically just, if you're going after anyone of any kind or making stereotypes about any kind, you're gone. That's the simple fact. You're gone. I want people to feel safe and be able to just express themselves in the comments how they wish. I want everyone to be just nice to each other. That's all really. No one just being dicks to each other for no conceivable reason. That's my life philosophy, is people should be able to do what they want as long as it doesn't infringe on anyone else's right to do what they want. Live your best life without feeling shame for living your best life. It's as simple as that, and that's kind of how this is going to go going forward. It's not easy for me to say all this stuff because I often feel like I don't know enough about this because I don't have the lived experience of these things. So talking about it is just me kind of being like, yeah, I'm with you, I don't know what to do now. But I want to help. I want to be supportive. So I just kind of wanted to make this public statement going forward that is how this channel is going to be operated. I'm not going to tolerate any sort of bigotry within the comments. You're all lovely, by the way. This isn't directed at anyone in particular, because so far, across pretty much the whole history of my channel, you're all lovely. Maybe it is because I don't really bring this stuff up normally, but you are all lovely, generally. So, keep being that way, is all I'm saying. So that's my statement. Thank you for sitting through this. Thank you for not just skipping ahead to the bit afterwards. Thank you for that. And now, I think we should return to the normal way we do things in the Chatty Corner. So, let me talk about what has changed in the past month. So, last month, there were a couple of things that I said were going to happen that didn't happen in the last month. So one of those things was Doom Eternal, Why It's Kinda Bad. That did not happen because I was working on 2 Losing the Plot episodes, pretty much back to back. And based on my original schedule, I would have had to have worked on Doom Eternal in between. And I just didn't really have the time to do it. And I thought, well, is it really necessary to get out now? Because I wanted to get the Last of Us video out for June the 19th, and I wanted to get the Sonic videos out in the past week, because obviously both of those were tied in with other things going on. So June the 19th was, of course, the release of Last of Us 2, so I wanted to get the Last of Us 1 video up for that, and those 2 Sonic videos were to be in the week in which Sonic's anniversary sits. So I wanted to get that right, and I was like, Doom can wait. So Doom has been delayed, and you will see where that's coming at the end of the video. The second thing was, I was going to do a Ferrets First on The Sims 4. The problem with that one is I've been having some technical issues with my Elgato, and that video just did not work, unfortunately, which is a shame, because it was kind of entertaining. I think it would have been a really good video if the footage wasn't all horrendously screwed up. Good news, I fixed the problem, so thankfully that's all good. Even a video that I recently recorded for something, I'm not going to say what it is, it's a secret thing, but I was recording some footage, and the program seemed to lock up towards the end of the footage, but I checked the footage back and it seems to be okay, which is good, but we'll see what happens when that exports. But anyway, The Sims didn't happen, but I have fixed problems, so hopefully I won't have that as an issue going forward, and I won't have to keep cancelling Ferrets Firsts, because the footage just keeps screwing up. And the problem with those videos is, the footage screws up, then I just can't redo it, because obviously the whole point is it's my first impressions, and then I'm just replaying it, and I'm like, well, I already know what happens. So that's fun. But like with scripted stuff, I can do new takes and things like that, so it's fine, but not for Ferrets First, unfortunately. So yeah, that was some changes to the schedule, but nothing too major. Thankfully, good news. Good news, for the first time since relaunching this, I'm in a really, really nice position schedule-wise. Like, I've got stuff planned, and I know where it's all coming, and I've got it all sort of stretched out over a few weeks rather than me rushing through a project at the last minute in like 3 days. It's really nice. There shouldn't be any major schedule changes going forward. We will come back in a month and see how that's worked out. What has happened this month? Well, so obviously we did the Chatty Corner a month ago, which is the norm. In that one I did ask for questions. I asked for sort of opinions on when you think good upload times would be, blah, 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 blah. No one really answered it. I got one comment from Sheezy Bites, one of my patrons, who basically said that time isn't really a factor for him personally, so it's fine. And I'm like, okay, well, cool. And then no one else said anything, so that's fine. That's fine. If there's any questions or requests that you have, please let me know. And that's just going to be the general thing going forward. So there's that. So this month I put out two episodes of Losing the Plot. I did have a comment on the Portal video from the Shakura Kazuki, and they talked about the game would not do as well as, let's say, a film adaptation. It isn't what people want. We want a spin-off or a prequel, a new story, or more background information. There is so much that has potential to be in the Portal universe, and it has the freedom to be made into a good narrative that could make a good film. Completely agree. The point of the video, and I said this in a comment in response anyway, but the point of the video wasn't really to sort of go like, Portal could never have any sort of multimedia franchise sort of thing. It was basically to say how the story of those games is written in a way where it could only work as a video game. It's supposed to be just praising the game for using the gameplay to tell its story and using the environment and, you know, using player agency as part of how it tells its story. But you are correct that the world of Portal itself, you could certainly make side stories, other media that would work in that. I know there have been fan films and things like that. I know there have been... Wasn't there a comic book at some point? I'm sure there was a comic book. I know there was something involving Ratman, who is the guy in the thing scrolling the cake is a lie. So there's something involving him. There's something involving Ratman. I just can't remember what it is. But yeah, there's definitely ways of telling stories within that universe in other mediums, but I'm just saying that the story of the game itself just works really well for its medium. Because that's obviously the point of Losing the Plot, which is to hone in on something that the game does really well, or does not well, as you'll see in a future episode. But yeah, I can understand the confusion perhaps, but ultimately that's the point I was getting across, was just praising the writing for making a game that only works as a game and couldn't really be easily adapted. So it's really making good use of the medium it's in. Because there's, the point is that there are a few games where you could pretty much lift the story and drop it into another medium, and you wouldn't really need to change much. It's like I used the example of Uncharted, where you could pretty much take all the cutscenes out and turn it into a film, and it would kind of work still, and But I did get a couple of comments on the video as well, talking about the GLaDOS voice that I did at the beginning of that video. That was a fun thing to put together, so this is some behind the scenes stuff for you. I try and change up the spoiler warning that I put at the beginning of Losing the Plot, because obviously if I'm doing a deep dive into the plot, I'm going to be talking about spoilers, and I want to get that across in every single episode. But I don't just want to do like a flat thing where I say like, oh, there's spoilers. If I can do something fun with the spoiler warning, then I will do something fun with the spoiler warning. The only ones I haven't done that on so far have been Uncharted and The Last of Us. Because with Control, I just put like a big spoilers ahead in the big font that the game uses. Because I thought that would just be like, setting the tone right out the gate. And then Portal, I had to do a sort of Aperture Science style warning. And I thought, well, initially, I wasn't going to do the GLaDOS voice. I was just going to read it out normally, as if I was like another sort of AI. And then I thought, do you know what? It doesn't sound right. I need to look up how to do the GLaDOS voice. I know that there is an effect, and I know how to talk in a way that would work, because there is a very specific sort of cadence that Ellen McLean used as GLaDOS that I was trying to imitate, which is this sort of robotic voice that sounds almost calming, but isn't really. So then I looked that up, and I downloaded a free trial of Melodyne, which is an auto-tune program, and fed my voice into that one. Unlike Ellen McLean, I had to bump it up a few octaves, because I don't have a female-sounding voice. You might have noticed this. And yeah, so I had to bump that up to the point where, like, the previous commenter did say it sounded a bit more like the cake call, the one that turns up at the end of Portal 1 and is just reading out a terrible recipe for cake, which includes ingredients like sediment-shaped sediment. I didn't really touch on that because it felt extra. You didn't need that stuff, but that's a thing that's in there as well. Again, it kind of highlights the fact that so much of that game is hidden things that you can pick up on and discover, and that's how it tells its story, and that's why it works. Yeah, that one was a fun one to put together, just because you've probably noticed it. I try and gear every Losing the Plot episode a little bit to the style of the game that it's from. With Control, I went a bit weird with it. I did the Nightmind intro. If you're wondering, the Control thing from a couple of months ago, the intro to that is just a straight rip-off of Nightmind. I completely lifted it. I was even going to put like a filter on my voice and everything to make it sound like, a little bit creepier. But then I just talked a bit lower and it worked anyway. But that's why there's the misty effect and the BTPF thing came up. And that's because I was trying to be like, we're investigating this spooky thing, friends. Portal, I tried to make it a bit more playful, so it's a bit like the game, and obviously that's where I had like the ending line about releasing neurotoxin if you don't leave, because had to do that. The Last of Us has gone the opposite way. The Last of Us was very serious. Writing that script took a while, because it was not easy to write in that script, because a big chunk of that script was imagining what's going through someone's head as they're about to die. That's a really fun script to write, and when you've just written a previous episode which is about like, oh, this computer's funny, it's a jarring moment when you have to do that. But yeah, it was some serious whiplash to jump from one to the other. Not a lot of comments on the Last of Us video, but that one was a really good one to put together as well, just because the main thing that I enjoyed about that one is the Last of Us soundtrack is really good. And therefore, while editing it, I listened to a lot of the Last of Us soundtrack because I had it in the timeline. So you're just constantly playing it back and just hearing those soft, sad guitars, and it's really nice. I like that music. Side note, we're 4 episodes into Losing the Plot, and I'm really enjoying making that series. So yeah, I think I've nailed it. This is the sort of thing I've wanted to do for a while, and I really am enjoying where this is going. There wasn't really room to do any fun things with The Last of Us, really. It's just me talking about, like, it's really sad, and there's a lot of sad things going on, and everyone's got feelings. and people are dying. And I managed to not put any COVID references in there. I think there's one, but it's really subtle. I think when I'm referring to Henry talking about like wanting to, go back to a simpler time when they didn't have to deal with a major outbreak of something. I think I made some comment about like, same, but it's very subtle. If you haven't watched the Last of Us video, go and watch it. For that one, it doesn't feel like Control, where it felt like no one was watching it. It feels like people are watching the Last of Us video and then not saying anything in response, which I'm just like, either it's really good that no one's got anything to add, or it's really bad and everyone's just walking away from it. I don't know. It worries me, but people are watching it, so that's good. So thank you for watching it, even if I don't know what you guys think of it. I really want feedback on stuff. It's a new, this is a new series and new things going on. I'm trying a lot of different things. So I'd like to sort of get some opinions on where things are going, really. Then I did Sonic Week. The Sonic anniversary is on June the 23rd, because that's when the original Mega Drive Sonic game came out in 1991 in America. So that's like the official anniversary. I thought, well, let's do some Sonic stuff there, because I've got Sonic Forces, because that was a free PlayStation Plus game a few months back, and I haven't played it, because at the time I played Sonic Mania instead of Forces, and then never... I think I played a demo of Forces at EGX, and was just like, this isn't that good. So technically it wasn't my first time playing that game. I mean, it had been long enough that I'd forgotten. The demo of Mania I really enjoyed, and the demo of Sonic Forces I was kind of on. That's why I never got around to playing it. And then it's given away for free on PlayStation Plus, and I was like, well, I guess I'll play it now. That one was a fun Ferret's First to do, by the way. I kind of leaned heavily into the original character Do Not Steal whole deal, to the point where I definitely started being ironic about creating my own Sonic OC. But by the end of it, I was like, am I still being ironic? Or do I really care about this OC? I mean, I was still trying to make it as like ridiculous as possible, but I think the level of effort I was putting into it, I'm just like, I've got to give it this exact hat. The spiderweb tee is absolutely key to this look, taking it very seriously and making the worst possible Sonic OC, because he had to have the backwards cap, because he's a radical 90s animal mascot character. Hope you guys enjoyed that one, by the way. I did get a comment from Cheesy Bites on that one, which was, he wasn't impressed with Forces, just sort of expressing his negative opinions towards Forces, and of course sharing my opinion that there were no ferret options for the OC. You can have a bird, kind of a ferret though. What's all that about? And then I followed that up with why it's bad. The Sonic the Hedgehog franchise, which is kind of like, hey, it's retrospective of the Sonic franchise, but oh boy, there's been a lot of bad decisions. As Jam commented on that video, basically saying, I really love the Sonic franchise simply because no amount of bad games and bad decisions can slow it down. It's kind of inspiring in a strange way. This is the funny thing about the Sonic franchise, is that so much of it is bad, and yet it's weirdly compelling. I consider myself a fan of the Sonic franchise, but I fully acknowledge how bad so much of it is, and I don't understand how those two thoughts can exist in one head. Even acknowledge in the video that it's a really good series. It's when it gets it right, it's really fun. I'm certainly not interested in as should be obvious from the video where I rant on about when the game tries to tell serious stories, it's really dumb. It needs to stop doing that. It's I just want to run around at the speed of sound. I've got places to go, I've got to follow my rainbow and all that stuff. There are two things that I like about the Sonic series above all else. Number one, I just like the sort of speedy platforming, because it isn't just about you've got to run really fast despite the whole gotta go fast thing. Because almost all of the good Sonic games are designed in a way where levels have multiple paths, and it's it encourages replaying them quite a bit to sort of learn optimum routes and things like that, and that's really fun when done right. Which it was done right in the Mega Drive games, and it was done right in the sort of boost-based games. So Unleashed and Colors and Generations, it was done really right. And the other thing I like about Sonic is the music. You might be able to tell that from watching that video because of just how I went all out on my music choices in that video. Because normally with Why It's Rad/Bad, I pick a track of some kind that would work really well for the title card, and that track gets used, and it's deliberately it just cuts in deliberately just to drive you insane. But with this, I was like, I can't just do one thing because there are so many terrible Sonic lyrics, so many endearingly terrible Sonic lyrics, that I want to use all of them. So I did. I used all of them. You're welcome. All of them were meticulously chosen for their exact section as well. So like the I can't do this alone, even though I am strong, got used for the bit about friends. And then there was the bit like, you and I are the same in the way that we have our own style that we won't change, for the bit about Sonic never learning their goddamn lessons. It's a weirdly endearing series, even though it's awful. It's that same kind of enjoyment that you get out of watching a movie like The Room. It's not quite Deadly Premonition in terms of being, or a really bad game that ends up being really, really good. It just, sometimes it does veer just straight into bad territory. Sonic 06 is a notable one. Like, recording the silver footage. Oh boy. Oh god damn it. That footage. I forgot how bad silver was to control. And there are bits in that video as well where like the frame rate falls apart. And I know I've described in the past about how I've had issues with recording and some glitches and things like that. Can confirm that's the game, not a recording glitch. Yes. The frame rate issues, I left them in. I was like, okay, this shot, this clip works really well because it shows all these physics objects flowing around and the frame rate tanking. It's the perfect illustration of the Sonic 06 experience. And the bit with the ramp. I intentionally did the bit with the loop where you could just stand upside down on the loop. It is not a fun game to play. I've somehow beaten that game. I don't know why or how, but I did it. Sometimes I do this to myself and I wish I wouldn't. But okay. Anyway, yeah, so those are the videos for this month. Got a couple of Losing the Plots, and we got the Sonic Week, which was really good. I enjoyed the videos this month, and the fact that I got back on track schedule-wise through doing all that was really, really useful as well. So, yes, that's sort of my content for the past month. But I'm going to sort of start a new thing where I start talking about some stuff that I've been watching that kind of feeds into what I've been doing, but also some stuff that I've just generally been watching that I think is really good, and I want to encourage people to go watch that. So, for the Portal video, there were a couple of things that I watched. With some of the more recent Losing the Plots, I've been trying to go and watch other people's videos on the same game, so I can kind of get like a range of perspectives on things, to sort of help me kind of clarify my own thoughts, because it's usually interesting if like I hear someone's opinion on it, and I'm like, I'm not sure I agree with that, or that's an interesting point. You know, Uncharted 4's episode, a lot of that came from seeing complaints on the internet about like, oh, the beginning's really slow, and you're like, oh, well, Drake doesn't do all these things to win Elena back and all the rest of it. So it's really good, I find, to watch other people's analyses on these games and get sort of other opinions. So for Portal, I watched Liam Triforce's Portal retrospective and Zalama's Portal 2 comedy amongst tragedy videos. These were both really good at sort of helping me kind of rediscover a lot of the Portal stuff before I went back and recorded the footage, and it was just really interesting to kind of see other people's thoughts on that. For The Last of Us, I watched, there was a few videos that I watched for that. There's The Last of Us Changed My Life by Grant Vogel. I don't know if I said that right, but there we go. And I also watched the Last of Us portion of Uncharted and The Last of Us Great and Terrible Games by Joseph Anderson, who generally makes some really good analysis videos as well, so it's definitely worth watching those. I also watched both of the games as literature analyses of both Portal and The Last of Us. Portal one's great because, well, you just have to watch the companion cubes in the background. Yeah, that one's a really fun one for that reason alone. And then for sort of other videos that I've been watching and enjoying that I sort of recommend having seen in the last month, some of these are new videos and some of them are new to me, so I'm going to recommend all of these. YouTube has recently recommended a creator called Sarah Zed, who is a Canadian girl who does a lot of stuff about various bits of media. And she did a video on bad media criticism, which was the video that YouTube recommended to me. And it's basically talking about like how things like CinemaSins and the Nostalgia Critic have like kind of put a lot of bad faith media criticism out there that isn't very useful as criticism. And it was definitely sort of interesting getting her opinions on how you frame your arguments in analytical videos, because it's obviously something I can take away and be like, maybe am I doing this right for my own videos? I think I am. It's also really interesting watching hard world building versus soft world building by Hello Future Me. which was a really good video talking about like sort of Tolkien-esque world building versus Ghibli-esque world building, and that was really interesting. I wish I'd seen that video before I did the Control one, because I think that would have been a good thing to refer to. It's definitely something I'm going to apply for future videos where I focus on world building. So there's some interesting stuff in that one. The only other sort of video game video that I've got as one of these recommendations is casual games for someone who doesn't play games. So there's a few videos by Rasputin, who basically got his girlfriend, who does not play games, to play some games. I think I'd seen the original video of this where he got her to play like a bunch of different games, one of which was Dark Souls, and I'm just like, okay, that's not really a beginner's game, but alright. But then, like, this recent one that I saw this month was a video just about casual games specifically. So The Sims was one of them, Animal Crossing was another one, I can't remember what the other two were, but, you know. And it was basically like, you know, these games are sort of tailored towards people who aren't really, you know, big gamers, so their mechanics tend to be simple, they tend to be, you know, sort of grounded in real life and all that sort of stuff. So it's like, how does a casual non-gamer experience those sorts of games, and are they casual enough, essentially? And that was a really interesting video. I also really enjoyed this month. This is a completely off on another tangent subject, but the history of Coney Island by Defunctland was a really fun video. Defunctland is one of my more esoteric choices of channels I'm subscribed to, because, I mean, you'd look at my channel and be like, he's not into theme park history. I'm like, weirdly I am. So at least when YouTubers talk about it, I'm like, ooh, yes, tell me about Coney Island. I've never seen or been near Coney Island, but yes, tell me everything about it. It's a really fun video. It's also just fun, full of dry humour, which is probably unsurprising, is totally my thing. Just lots of really out there statements said in the most bland way possible. And just, it's one of those things where you sort of realise it's the slow realisation of what he just said. That's just how Kevin, the guy who runs it, that's just how he talks normally. Also, really recommend Freaks, Geeks and the X-Files by Pushing Up Roses, which is a recent video. I really like Pushing Up Roses, she makes some really good videos, but also, most recent video she did was on the X-Files, and that's kind of my jam. That's kind of my whole deal. Like, the second episode of Losing the Plot was on Control. So it shouldn't be a surprise that I'm like an X-Files nerd. I even put an X-Files clip in there. That was a really fun episode as well, just because, yeah. And she drew attention to one of the funniest shots in X-Files history. So that was good too. Definitely go check all of those videos out. That sort of gives you an insight into the sort of thing that I've been watching and inspiring me the past month, essentially. So that's that. Links are all in the description, of course. I'm putting everything in there, so that it's all ready for you to just click on and see what's going on. So with all that out the way, what's happening next? So, Friday is going to be a Ferrets First, because I just put out a bunch of big projects, but also it's a topical Ferrets First, because it's The Last of Us 2. So, there you go. Last week, but because I was doing Sonic Week, I thought it can come out next week. So that's The Last of Us 2. That's going to happen. So you get my first impressions of The Last of Us 2. A week later should be Why It's Kinda Bad, Doom Eternal. Talking about my disappointments. The video that I promised you last month is going to happen this month. It's going to happen on the 10th of July. And then you're getting a Ferrets First on Darksiders 3, because that's another PlayStation Plus game that I just have lying around, so I'll do that one because I need that extra week, because on the 24th of July is the big one. I'm doing a Losing the Plot on Tomb Raider. A little while ago I mentioned that a viewer request has inspired something, and this is what it was. So, okay, back on the Resident Evil 2 Why It's Rad video, I had a comment from San021 asking if I was going to do a rad/bad video on the Tomb Raider remakes. And the answer is no. But on the 24th of July, you're going to get something even bigger than that. And that is going to be Tomb Raider. And I'm going to focus on the reboot trilogy in relation to how it compares to like the original games, the original core design games. So it's going to look at what Crystal Dynamics were trying to achieve with the reboot, how it compares to the original games, and how well it achieves that. Spoiler alert, it doesn't achieve it very well on either front. So it's kind of looking at how Lara is as a character, and also just how the stories in the new games are structured and whether or not they work at all. Spoiler alert, they kind of don't. So, yes, that's kind of a big one, and that's kind of why I'm glad that I've that's also why there's going to be 2 Ferrets First this month, because it kind of frees up a lot of stuff, because I have a lot of stuff to record and talk about, because I am covering a 20-year franchise in depth. This isn't like the Sonic stuff where I could load up, play a few levels, and have like each game be like 20 minutes of footage, and it works. Now this is going to be a lot more in depth. I have to record all of Rise of the Tomb Raider and Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I don't have to record Tomb Raider 2013 because guess what? I already did a Let's Play on that, so I've got a ton of footage for that game already, which is nice. That's really handy. That's one advantage of doing Let's Plays once upon a time. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I can't really use footage from my Tomb Raider 4 Let's Play, even though Tomb Raider 4 gets quite a bit of focus in the script as I've written it so far, because it's my favourite one, but because all that's like in old SD graininess, I'm like, ugh, I should probably get new footage of that. But that's a big game, so that's going to be an interesting one. So yeah, that's what's coming. And on 31st of July, just because that's going to be a big project, you're getting another Ferrets First. It's going to be Titanfall 2, because that's another PlayStation Plus game that I've got lying around. And it's just, I've got a list of games that are just like, I'll throw that in. And when I need it, like, okay, this part of the schedule I can do with a week, right? Just an easy video. Just throw that game out there, and that's what Titanfall 2 is going to be. So there you go, and that's when the Chatty Corner is going to come out. This one came out a little bit later than the other ones. I think it's just because, like, I wanted to just delay it a little bit. It wasn't really any sort of specific reason. I just thought, I'll put that out on the Monday. I think just to get it out of Sonic Week, because I wanted just, here's these 2 videos, they're really good. Now it's not Sonic Week anymore, here's the Chatty Corner. So that's that. So that's the schedule going forward. That's the thing for the next month. As always, if you've got any questions that you want me to answer in the next edition, let me know. If you've got any requests for any future videos that you would like to see on the channel, let me know that too. As always, if you want updates on the channel, you can follow me on Twitter at BobThePetFerret, and you can follow me for general tweets on The Cheap Ferret. I'm also on Patreon at BobThePetFerret as well. You'll see the patrons' names at the end of the video, as always, if you're not already seeing them. And to reiterate once again, going forward, I would like to make it very clear that this needs to be a safe space for everyone, and so I want everyone to treat each other in the most lovely way possible. Make the world a better place with your general loveliness. So thank you for watching, and I will see you with another one of these in a month, but you'll see me again Friday with The Last of Us 2, Ferrets First. Thank you very much. Goodbye.